adaptive immunity. It's what keeps us from dying every time we get an infection. So, what is this miraculous adaptive immunity? Well, adaptive immunity is the third line of defense in our body's immune systems. In the case that our natural barriers, such as our skin and mucous membranes, can't keep a pathogen out of the body, it helps us to fight the infection. It operates on two main levels, known as the humoral response and the cell-mediated response. Well, how does the immune response actually start? Well, it starts when antigen-presenting cells such as macrophages, dendrites, or B lymphocytes detect the presence of a pathogen and break it apart with the help of lysosomes. They then present its antigens or part of its antigens known as epitopes on MHC2. This process secretes cytokines, which are signaling proteins that act as red flags to draw the attention of helper T cells. Then, helper T cells use a surface protein known as CD4+ to validify the antigen. If helper T cells determine the lack of a threat, well, no immune response will be mounted. On the other hand, if helper T cells sense a threat to the body, the antigen will be presented to numerous different lymphocytes in the lymph nodes until it is matched with a lymphocyte whose receptors correspond to the antigen, in which case the matching lymphocyte will form multiple clones of itself in a process known as clonal selection. Cytokines and interleukin-2 signal the cytotoxic T cells to activate the cell-mediated response, and the B cells to activate the humoral response. Of the B cells, some of them become effector or plasma B cells, which are useful in creating antibodies, which are Y-shaped proteins that are useful in marking a pathogen for destruction by a macrophage, and even make it harder for pathogens to infect other cells. So if plasma B cells create all the antibodies, what do the rest of the B cells do? Well, these remaining B cells are known as memory B cells, and allow our body to maintain an immunological memory, which forms the basis of vaccination, so that if our body does become infected with the pathogen again, the body can launch a much more efficient immune response to it. On the other hand, cytotoxic T cells, also known as killer T cells, are in charge of dealing with cells already infected with the pathogen. Cytotoxic T cells cause infected cells to undergo apoptosis, or programmed cell death, by releasing perforin, which is a protein that forms pores inside the membrane of the targeted cell, and granzymes, which are enzymes that deteriorate other proteins, both of which eventually cause the cell to lyse. Even though these cells are part of our body, when infected by a pathogen, they become hosts of it. It's almost as if the pathogen has hacked into the cell's systems to produce proteins that are necessary to grow yet more pathogens, which is why it's necessary to kill these cells. While the immune system is complicated, it's fascinating to know that our bodies are doing all this without our brains consciously telling it to do so. So the next time you feel bummed out by an infection, remember how truly amazing your immune system is.